how to close your prospect and ensure that they only move forward with you. So guys, what if you can actually close at the beginning of your sales process rather than at the end of your sales process? And what if you can have your prospects sold on you and committed to working only with you well before you spoke to any of your lenders and before you actually presented any formal offers? Now, if that was actually possible, do you think that that would drastically change your conversion ratios for the better? Let me tell you something, I'm going to cut right to the chase. It would by a lot. Guys, if you don't know who I am, I'm Gavin Bird. We're an online business loan brokerage located in the United States, and we train anybody to do exactly what it is we do one-on-one in the field. We will literally provide everything that you can conceivably need to be a successful business loan broker. And one of the biggest mistakes that I'm seeing, guys, for a lot of brokers is holding to the belief that the close happens at the end when they present their offers to their clients. Now, this way of doing things only ensures that your close ratios are actually lowered drastically. Okay, the knock-on impact of lower close ratios is obviously pretty obvious. It's going to massively affect your revenue, being the biggest one, right? Now, the first shift then we've got to make is understanding that closing is something that happens throughout your sales process and is not something that you just do at the end. Closing should actually start right at the very beginning, from the very first engagement you have with that prospect. And we basically do this by something called pre-framing or pre-selling. Now, I like to call it pre-framing, so for the rest of this video, that's what we'll call it. So what is pre-framing? Well, pre-framing then is basically what you do to build trust and credibility with your prospect. And it would include everything that you do before you even get on a call with that prospect, okay? It's about offering value up front by way of demonstrating your knowledge and your expertise as a loan broker. And this is something that I've actually talked about, guys, on other videos on our channel. So if you actually watch this one to the end, I'm going to tag on 2 videos that will enable you to dig in further into that concept. But let's get back to pre-framing. We have to build trust and credibility first. It's really important. And that being the case, can you see why now, if you try and close at the end and haven't done any of that pre-framing, any of that trust building, credibility building, well, it's basically no surprise that the prospects tend to continue shopping around, or they just have you run the quote, and then when you get to present to them, they say your quote's too high, your rates are too high. So it's actually important that we close from the get-go. The trick to pre-framing then is to close without specifically trying to close by adding value and demonstrating your knowledge of their business, of their situation, and of the market. And in turn, you dovetail that into demonstrating your product knowledge by offering the solution to their problem. And when you get really good at this, you can actually even go over the figures on the phone before submitting to any lender, which means that you verbally close them before you do any work. Now, that's a really powerful thing to be able to do. But let's talk about pre-framing. The way we pre-frame and essentially close as we do our call is by asking open-ended questions that open the actual conversation up on the topics that I've just basically mentioned. And doing this allows you to demonstrate your knowledge and therefore your value to that prospect. Doing it this way allows you to lead the entire interaction and in turn puts your prospect at ease and builds your credibility. And this is why we suggest niching down to specific markets, because that kind of focus basically makes it so much easier to become that expert. So the more value you can add up front, the better it's going to be. And if you're just starting out, I do understand you're probably thinking, well, how do I do that? I don't know anything right now. Well, if you were trained, obviously, that wouldn't be an issue because you've got the coaches. We can actually step in the field with you and we can be that font of knowledge for you as we train you on what we've basically got to do. But there are videos on our channel too that will explain this further. So again, watch to the end. You can dig into those videos and we'll take you into niching and how we do all of that stuff. But it really just comes down to your knowledge. And if you don't have that, well, really, guys, it's a case of faking it until you make it, right? You've got to start somewhere. So you have to start learning your market. And that's where I put a lot of my intention in the early days. But let's get back to pre-framing. Once you have your credibility established, trust naturally develops, and that puts you firmly in control, because part of that pre-framing and closing and adding value then is also managing that prospect's expectation as to what the deal is going to be. And if you are not in a place where they at the very least perceive you as credible, it's pretty much impossible to manage any expectations and expect them to believe you, right? Everybody wants cheap rates, guys, but not everybody is going to get them. And in fact, most don't get them, which means it's your responsibility as part of the pre-framing to educate them on what that deal is likely going to look like. And that way there's no surprises when you eventually present that quote. And it's at this point you close. But now it's so much easier to do if you've done everything else correctly, right? It's a given, in fact. Do you see how this works? So you've got to put as much time, guys, and effort into how you pre-frame and therefore your entire sales process as you do everything else when you're learning this profession. Sales and closing is a skill, and it really does take time to master, but it definitely is not just getting on a call and asking a bunch of questions, right? The way you engage your clients is everything when it comes to being consistent with your revenue. It's that simple. And if you are consistent with your revenue, well, you're in a brilliant position to be able to scale and grow. Okay, so recapping this, closing happens from the very first engagement that you have, which means that you should put time into understanding your sales process from the beginning right the way through to the end. You need to be studying and learning both business and your market and your products. And you want to make sure that you become a student of sales, okay? Don't overlook this at all. Sales done well requires you to lead, to be assertive, and to be seen as an expert, because essentially you are the expert, right? Closing through the entire process means that you are focusing on developing, through your questioning and your conversation skills with that client, trust, credibility, likability. And if you can keep focused on that and keep working on that, on how you basically do that, you will not go far wrong, guys. I promise you. It's just a case of dialing yourself in. And obviously, if you want to learn more about sales and our approach to it, we do have a sales playlist on our channel. So make sure you look out for that. In fact, if you watch to the end and click those videos, that will take you to that playlist too. So closing happens right from the beginning, not at the end. If you get that bit right, you become a student of sales and learn what you need to learn with sales. And just again, to simplify, focus on trust, credibility. Forget the likability, because you're either a likable person or you're not. So, you know, that's kind of your personality. But the trust and the credibility, that's just down to knowledge, right? Hope this helped, guys. Speak soon. Bye.